Have you ever been in the situation where you find that one of your major life assumptions, one that guided it and your whole moral and belief system, had suddenly betrayed you and let you down? Absolutely. A situation where your expectations, if only even partly formed, were suddenly cut off? I had. I was a member of what I think was a normal family, almost boring in its conventionality. I had a dad who worked as a supervisor at an electronics firm, a mom who had been a teacher but now worked part-time at the local library. I had 3 siblings, a brother Tom, younger than me, and 2 older sisters, twins Anna and Kathy, and my relationship to all of them varied from support to mild bickering. In other words, we were a fairly normal family, or at least fairly conventional. I was 14, and, until a few weeks before, I thought I was just a regular girl. Yeah, I was special, to me, but to be honest, I had done all of the normal girl things growing up, going to meet best friends at play dates and birthday parties. Then there was kindergarten, school and church, dressing in Sunday best. There was playing at moms and houses with other girls, playing with dolls, admiring myself in pink frilly dresses, giggling secrets, despising boys. I followed my older sisters in their choice of styles and fashions. I had babysat and played with and looked after younger kids. Later, I had even sighed over pop idols. I had posters of bands on the walls of my room. Then I began to see the changes as I passed my 12th birthday. Like the other girls my age, almost without noticing it, my nipples began to swell, and I noticed my body began to change shape. Some hair began to grow under my arms and at my groin, but it was not as much as other girls. But that was okay, as it meant less shaving to do, at least under my arms. It was whispered that some older girls shaved at their groins, but none of my friends did. Like the other girls, I had experimented with makeup, trying to push the limits my mother had set. My mother helped me along at these times, explaining what was happening to my body, then slowly, carefully, preparing me, telling me about babies and, yes, men's role in it. It was going to be a great adventure, growing up, she said. When my breasts swelled enough, she advised me on my first bra. Then one of my friends, Darlene Graham, began to have periods, which involved more instruction from my mother when I commented on it. Then another friend, Joanne Connell, did too, and more girls did it until I was the only one who didn't, apart from Liz Braun, who was always skinny. Then finally she got a period too, and I still had not, and I was now 14. It was then that my mother took me to the doctor, who examined me and asked a few questions, and then that needed a trip to the hospital for more tests. Finally, there was a sit-down with my mom and dad and with a specialist. The devastating news: I was not a real girl. I was really a boy, or a male anyway, but for some reason my own body had betrayed me. It had decided not to respond to the usual male hormones, as the doctor described it, something about a faulty X chromosome and missing androgen receptors. So my appearance was the default shape, female. That meant I was rather special, one in many tens of thousands, they told me, but it was something I would have preferred to do without. But the devastating news was that my female shape was only for the external appearance. I looked like every other girl on the outside. I had wide hips, a round butt, a slim waist, and I had breasts. Maybe they had been a little slow to develop, but I thought they were a pretty shape, and I was proud of them and happy that I had to wear a bra like the other girls. I spoke in a girl's high voice. I am sure I thought like a girl too. But inside me, I had no female bits, I was told. That is, no ovaries, no tubes, no womb, none of the things that I was told that girls should have. I had labia. I had a vagina, but it did not lead anywhere. It was a blind alley. I could never have babies. I would never be a mother, at least of my own children. Worse, somehow, lurking somewhere in my body, there were testicles. These had never been called into action and never would be. In fact, I was told that they should be removed to stop them possibly going cancerous. Actually, I did not cry much at the news, and I am not sure if my mother did either. We were both in a kind of white-faced hollow-stomached numbness. I was 15 and having babies of my own had been something perhaps to think about, although sometime in the distant future after I had met the right boy. In fact, pregnancy was something better to be avoided for some years. It was not something had not been right in my mind anyway. Now I was confronted with the fact that it would never happen and my life would be different from most other girls. My mother would never be a grandmother to children of mine, and maybe she shed a tear in private. If she did not tell me. The aftermath? I suppose Mom immediately gave me all the emotional support she could. She had to try to understand my own feelings too and emphasize, but there began to be hints about what I could do with my life without children, or how adopting children could be fulfilling, or that many women could have happy and fulfilling lives without children of their own. I was bewildered by how my life had changed and how I was inexorably diverted from what had seemed like life's major courses and expectations for girls. Suddenly there was a great red octagonal stop sign on that road. My mother kept hinting at surgery to remove these useless testicles, but I was neutral about it. Going under a surgeon's knife against a small likelihood of getting cancer? What was the likelihood? What goes through a young girl's head? What was going through mine? I guessed I would do it, but I was procrastinating. My older sisters had a chat with me, well, more than one, and they were very supportive. "Look at it this way," Kathy said. "I'm slightly envious that you'll never have to endure the monthlies." But that did not really help. After the shock of the initial revelation had subsided, Mom and Dad did begin hinting about my career possibilities. I was a few years away from college, but maybe they wanted to plant a few ideas to germinate in my mind. It might make up for any male seeds that would never fertilize anything in my body, I thought bleakly. It was after Thanksgiving then that Mom and Dad suggested I take a small break from school and pay a visit to my dad's cousin Claudia. She was a successful lawyer over in Michigan. Claudia was married, and I remembered she had 2 boys, now both away in college, and I remembered my mother saying how Claudia had competently juggled being a mother and a corporate lawyer. Visiting her seemed like something positive to do, as she would be a good model of a professional woman for me. We sometimes called her Aunt, but as we got older she suggested a simple Claudia was enough. Claudia met me off the plane. I recognized her right away, as I had seen her at a family reunion a year back. I had been slightly in awe of her at that time. She exuded much competence and efficiency, but still combined them in a warm manner. She and her husband Carl had an easy relationship too, with gentle teasing and joking. She was a successful lawyer, so I suppose she was tough when she had to be, but otherwise she looked totally relaxed at home, and it looked as if she was able to leave her work back in her office. I had unpacked in the room assigned to me, and we were having some tea in her modern kitchen when she brought it up. "Your mom told me all about you. I hope you're all right with me knowing?" I shrugged. "I guess so. You'd be best to know. Maybe they hope I'll think of aiming for a professional job like yours now that having kids is out of the question for me. After your mother let me know about your situation. I've been reading up about it. You were raised as a girl. You are a girl." She emphasized that. "You can still meet a guy and fall in love. You can have a good love life. There will be guys who will love you. If you want kids, you can adopt them. You're as near a girl as you can be." "But my genes." "I see you've been reading. I've read about it too. So maybe a scientist, like a geneticist, could be in your future?" Possibly she was trying to encourage me with her bright smile, but she would have seen from my face that I wasn't ready, and she took my hands in hers. "Look, Alice, your genes have let you down, so as they say, you've been given lemons and you should make lemonade." She put her fingers under my chin and lifted. "And don't feel sorry for yourself. It won't help. But she must have seen I was close to tears and she hugged me. Later I realized she was crying too. Sorry, kiddo. I guess I need lessons in empathy. We were out doing some shopping therapy, as she called it, in the downtown area, when suddenly she stopped. Vera! Hi! That's a surprise. She had obviously met a woman friend and they had a brief hug. She turned to me. Alice, this is my friend Vera Campbell. Vera, this is my cousin's daughter Alice. She's visiting me for a few days. I politely shook hands with her. Vera looked as if she was in her 50s, her dark hair cut in a bob and showing a bit of gray. She was dressed conservatively but smartly in a tailored jacket over an expensive-looking tan sweater and nicely cut brown pants. She wore shoes that looked as if they were made of fine leather. She had gold earrings and a gold chain at her throat. I got the impression she was comfortably off. Alice? Vera and I have known each other for years. We're on a committee that does charitable works. At that, Vera slightly blinked her eyes and gave a fleeting smile, and I wondered if there was more to it than just that. Katia and Vera exchanged chit-chat for a couple of minutes, then Vera turned to me and asked me about myself. How long are you going to be here? I hope your aunt can find enough for you to do. I want to look around the city. There's some shops here we don't have in the town where I live. And I've heard the art gallery is good. Well, enjoy yourself. Look, I've got to get on with some things. It was lovely meeting you. Have fun, Alice. It was a couple of days later that Katia spoke to me over breakfast. I should have mentioned, Alice, I've got a meeting with Vera tomorrow and our committee. It will take me about 3 hours or so. Do you have enough to do so you don't get bored? I've got some school reading and a literature assignment to do. That will be enough. Can I use your computer? Conscientious girl. She told me the password. I tell you, Carl and I will take you out for dinner after. I had finished my homework when Katia got back. How was your afternoon? She asked. I put my arms over my head and stretched. A bit boring. But I got my assignment done and I've checked over it. You happy with it? Yeah, I guess. There were less distractions here than at home. So I could concentrate better. How are you feeling about things now? You know, what we discussed. I'm still a bit hollow, a bit angry, bewildered, but it's fading. Am I getting used to the idea, or is it that I'm partly denying it? Look, Alice, you are a great girl. She emphasized the girl. Even if you never have children of your own, you will do great things. But look, I have some things I want to talk to you about, although I need to check with your mom first. Like what? Oh, things. It came up on my meeting with Vera. Have patience. Let's wait and see, shall we? But first, we're going out tonight for dinner. Have you decided what to wear? She was distracting me, but that was all right. Maybe I was denying what was going on in my life, but I needed away from it and I needed distracted. What are you wearing? I asked. Katia gave a wry smile. Nowadays just about anything goes. I wear pants a lot at work, so sometimes I want to wear a dress and be more ladylike. Besides, this is a high-end place and I have a black dress that I know my husband likes. Does that give you any ideas? I've got one dress with me. Do you have pantyhose and shoes for it? Yes, I replied. You want to show me? I ran upstairs and changed out of my jeans, got out the dress and put it on. It was a dark blue-green. Mom had said its color matched my eyes. Yes, you look very nice, but here. She gave me some of her lipstick to put on. That looks smart. You have a nice figure too. I began to cry and she held me. Oops, what is it? Did I say something wrong? Katia, I grew up a girl, now it's as if my legs have been knocked from under me. I was looking forward to dressing up for boys, then hanging out with boys, dating like my sisters and some of the girls in my class have started. I supposed there would be going steady in my future, then I'd get married, and have my own kids. But now that's not for me. I mean, I'd have to tell any guy I was getting serious about that I couldn't have kids. Alice, you're a fine young lady. You're remarkably mature for your age. Look, she began, as if she was thinking of something, but she shook her head. No, that's enough seriousness for the day. But I may have an offer for you. What? Later. All very mysterious. But I left it. We had a great time that night. Katia and Carl were a good couple to be with. They treated me as an adult and I thought it was one of the best meals I had. I felt very sophisticated in my dress with these two bright people as they asked my opinion on a whole variety of things, all the way from politics to pop stars. I had a little makeup, I had earrings and my shoes had a small heel. I went to bed happy. It had been a great night, feeling grown up and suave and having been treated to a great tasting meal. I liked hot dogs, pizzas, and hamburgers, like all teenagers, I suppose, but I knew sometimes Mom would cook a fancier meal for her and Dad when all of us kids had something else on or there was some anniversary, and sometimes when they had some of Dad's work colleagues and their wives over, Mom would spend a bit more time in the kitchen. Katia and Carl ordered wine with their meal too, although there was none for me, only some sparkling water as I was underage. I wondered if sometime I would eventually get to liking red wine like they ordered, spending as much time on its selection as they did on the entree. I had once sneaked some wine from a half-finished bottle of my parents to try it, but I had not liked it. I had thought it was just too bitter. I had tried beer too with some other girls and we agreed it was too bitter as well. In the morning I woke hearing Katia on the phone with someone, and after a few minutes I realized it was my mother who she was speaking to, so I splashed water on my face, put on my dressing gown and staggered downstairs. Katia gave me a half smile. Good morning, Alice. Did you sleep well? Yes, thanks. I've got your mom on the phone. And without asking she passed the phone to me. Hi Mom. You have a nice time last night? I told her about it, then she said, Look, Alice, Katia wants to speak to you about something. She has my approval, but it's up to you. I'll let her tell you about it. Mom, you sound awful serious. Do I? But she did not say any more about it. We exchanged a few more pleasantries, then we finished. Love you, sweetie, and she made kissing sounds. Despite everything, her manner had not changed. She still treated me as her daughter. Katia was sipping some coffee. She actually offered me some, but I shook my head. Coffee was another adult drink I had not developed a taste for, so I poured some orange juice and set out a plate of cereal. Mom says you wanted to talk to me about something? Alice, she began. I have something to ask you. It's awfully important for you. I was speaking to your mom about it and she agrees with the offer I am going to make to you. But it's your decision whether you accept it. I stared at her. She seemed awfully serious. Maybe I should try some coffee, I said. She grinned as I got up and poured some coffee, added a lot of milk and a couple of spoons of sugar. That made it taste better and I thought maybe I could get used to it. Adults seem to thrive on it anyway. If she had something serious to ask me, I would pretend to be an adult. What is it? Alice, that meeting I was at yesterday, my committee. Let me tell you a bit about it. But first, this is terribly secret. I'm very serious. You must tell no one. Not even your mother. I've told her as much as she need know. Of course, I was immediately suspicious, but intrigued that I might be sharing some secret with this urbane lady. This committee, there are 12 ladies in it, and we have a variety of ages and professions. It was started by Vera Campbell, the lady who you met 2 days ago. What it does? Let me see. The committee is concerned about men who demean women by their attitudes or actions. Her voice was incisive. We want to fix that. So we remove them from the situations where they have the power to do it. And to do that we make them into women. My mouth fell open and she nodded knowingly. A kind of revenge, you might say, that way they get, let's say, a better appreciation of the challenges women face with certain kinds of men, but the main aim is simply to remove them from any position where they can harm women. Claudia was into really serious stuff. Ugh. How can you do that? I asked. That's awfully complicated surgery. Claudia shook her head. It would be, but no. We have a special book that has magic spells. If a man hears the spell, he is changed into a woman. I don't have to tell you that would be life-changing. The new woman has her life changed. She finds out how women have to live. What? I cried. I shook my head, wondering if I was dreaming. Here was this sophisticated professional woman telling me that she used magic. My eyes must have gone wide. You're telling me magic? I didn't think magic existed. It's like a Harry Potter book. Oh, it's not nearly as fancy as that. But what it can possibly do is help your situation. Alice, do you think of yourself as a girl? Yes, but I'm not really. Don't say that. But do you want to stay a girl, grow up and be a regular woman, and be able to have your own babies? Yes, I sniffed. Then what we can do is let you use that spell. If it can make men into women, then I'm sure it can fix you. Your mom says you haven't had any surgery, so maybe that will help too. Maybe these testicles somewhere in you could become ovaries too. My mouth fell open again. I could be like other girls? I could get pregnant? Well, yes, but not right away, I hope, she grinned. Remember, you'd be best to meet that right boy and get married first. I'm sure you have been told that. Yes. I want it. I've discussed how to do it with Vera and the committee. They're willing to help you, but they want your help in return. The reason is that then you'd be implicated in something, so it would be in your own best interests to keep your mouth shut. I mean about what we, are going to do and the existence of the magic spell. She gave me a piercing look, as a warning I supposed, but I was 14 and the adventure and risk appealed to me. But best of all, Claudia had cracked open the door to the life that should have been mine, one I had assumed would be mine but that had been suddenly blocked. When can we do it? Probably in a day or two. Our committee meets again tomorrow. When I get the information, I'll give you your instructions. 2 days later, Claudia took me to see Vera. I was a bit overwhelmed with her at first. She just seemed so much more serious and businesslike than when I had met her some days before. She went over the aims of their committee again, and the need for secrecy. It was like I was being interviewed for a job or maybe as a spy, I commented to Claudia as we were driving home. Don't you think it was a job? And one of the most important in your life? What did you think of Vera? I'm not sure. She was friendly, sympathetic, but tough too. I would not like to cross her. How did you get to know her? It was another committee we were on at the time. We just seemed to hit it off and she approached me later. I've been with the committee about 5 years. We handle some sleaze, roughly every 3 months. So 15 or so guys have been affected? Yes, and society is better without them. Don't get me wrong. I like men, usually. I love James, but there are some men who, don't get me started. Apart from the change, none of them was harmed physically. I like to think some would actually have improved their lives, although 2 are now in prison, women's prison. What's the next stage and what you want me to do? Vera is getting some more details on the next candidate, as you might call him. She will contact us with instructions. In fact, Vera called a day later, and the day after that I sat with Claudia, Vera and 3 others, Amanda, a striking red-haired woman, Helga, an accountant and Lori, who I gathered was a consultant of sorts. Vera looked round at us brightly. 0K ladies, so we are planning another exploit. Helga, can you outline this for us? Helga was in what looked like her business clothes, a dark blue pantsuit, severe, but over a bright blue ruffled blouse. Yeah, Maureen and I have been investigating a guy who was brought to our attention by Becky. Becky is a policewoman and on our committee, Vera explained, looking at me. Sorry, Helga, carry on. The guy's name is Morris Beckwith. He first came to our attention when he was working in a big office and there were consistent reports of him paying too close attention to women. It started with him staring at them, sometimes making inappropriate comments. Then it escalated to touching them and brushing against them. It could have been accidental, but there was just too much and it was on their rears and breasts. So there were complaints, but they were too difficult to prove and the police decided not to take any action. Finally, that company did fire him, but he got a new job and it started all over again. There was even an attempted sexual assault, but again, there were no witnesses and it would be too difficult to prove. He is careful. Probably at some point he will be caught, but a lot of women will suffer annoyance, even distress until that happens. He was fired from his second job too and now he works as a security guard. He recently forced a female shoplifter to submit to a strip search. This was really illegal on his part, but the girl would not pursue charges. There's worse. This job brings him into contact with minors. Bad enough that grown women are threatened, infinitely worse for young girls. We thought of trying to use a young girl for bait or that one of us could act as bait. We've done that before. The trouble is that, if we used a minor, we ourselves could be thought of as exploiting her and putting her in danger. She looked at me and lifted her eyebrows. But then your Aunt Claudia told us about your case. I assure you we would be very careful and it might have the best of outcomes for you. You see, you would become a girl really, genetically and physically, all there. My mouth fell open and I was ecstatic. I was getting something exciting to do. I would help these adult women and best of all, I could get my girl's body all in working order. Please, I want to do it. Thank you, Alice. I don't think there is any risk to you, but we will be watching very carefully. Vera looked at the others. All right, we can change this guy Beckwith, but it would be best if he disappeared too, or can be hidden away. And remember, the anonymity of this committee and the book we use has to be preserved. Where could we disappear him to? Asked Helga. Well, as you remember, some of our subjects were sent away, dumped away from here, some there are still here, but hidden away. 2 are in jail. It depends on their profile. Those with high profile, they are best sent away well out of state. Now this guy, I don't think he is too high profile, so no one will come looking for him too much. One thing, he has to be well hidden away while the book does its work on him, yes, and while he is unconscious, so that's 2 days, at least. So we have to kidnap him, then we may stick him on a transport truck going to God knows where. Yeah, we've used that before, Amanda said. So I'm proud to say, we now have a volunteer to help us, a bright young woman, who would be ideal. She beamed at me and I felt very important. And I believe it would be immensely life-changing for her. That makes me very happy. Okay, to business. Amanda, what's the plan? Amanda looked as if she was about 30. I saw a wedding ring on her finger. She brushed back her long red hair. As you said, the guy now works in a mall as a security guard. He was let go from his second job too. So much for them doing a background check. It's coming up for Christmas and maybe they are so desperate for security workers that they don't check properly. Anyway, the mall will have a Santa Claus there with some girls dressed up as elves. There will be more people than usual in the mall, so we will have to keep a very careful lookout. There's a stair and escalator leading to the second floor, just above where Santa is installed, and that would be a good place to watch from. The idea I have is that Lori and I can be there with our baby carriages as we are both recent mothers. Helga will be there too. Alice, we got a job there for you as an elf. I expect at some time the sleaze will find a reason to bump or brush against you and he may even grope you. You are an attractive girl, so you could be his target. We will be watching, and as soon as he does that we will find an excuse to get him away with supposed trouble round a corner in the mall. There is one nearby. You will follow. We will have him incapacitated with a taser, and then there is a storage room right there with a back entrance to the parking lot. I will read the spell to him and you will listen. We will then get you both out into a car or van and away. We will drop you off at Kadia's. In 5 minutes the spell will begin to affect both him and you. If he is like the other men, he will start to shiver, then fall unconscious. In fact, he will be unconscious for almost 2 days. Alice, I have no idea how it will affect you. Most women who have heard this spell feel uncomfortable, but only for several minutes. Looking at you, I see you have a woman's external body, even a woman's bone structure, but the spell will have to do some rebuilding inside you, and I have absolutely no idea how that will affect a person like you or how long it will take. Are you all right with that? I gulped, but I had no doubt. Sure, I want in. I thought you would. She rummaged in her bag. All right, here is your elf costume. Why don't you put it on so we can admire you and say how cute you are? 2 days later, I was one of 2 elves shepherding a lineup of children with their parents as they slowly shuffled to see Santa, who was sitting looking benign while the other elves busied themselves about him, and the kids sat on his knee or stood by him, some looking dazed, sometimes blinking in the flashes from camera, although it looked like most parents now had cell phones. Some kids were having meltdowns at the strange fat red guy. The green tights of my stupid costume were itchy and I was bending, scratching my legs when I realized there was something poking my butt, even stroking over it, and I turned around sharply. Unfortunately, a parent had pushed behind me and I saw only the back of some man. Security was written over the back of his shirt. I looked up to where Helga said she would be and she nodded to me. She had seen it too. There was a young kid started crying with all the fuss, and as I attended to her, bending over, I felt the hand again, this time even probing the hem of my panties under the stretch material of my green elf tights. I whirled, but he was already moving from me. Helga had seen it too and Amanda was by her. They started down the escalator. Next I saw them go to the security man, pretending to be distressed parents and pointing round the side. When they had been gone for half a minute, I left the line up and followed them. There was confusion. I had thought that he was supposed to be incapacitated, but he was struggling with Helga and Amanda. He was bigger than them, but fairly flabby, so they were equally matched. Amanda had her arms round his neck in a chokehold, and his arms were pulling at hers while Helga was trying to hold his legs to keep him from kicking. Their taser was lying on the floor being kicked around in the struggle, so I grabbed it, stuck it to his neck and pressed the button. He cried out and collapsed immediately, and I shut the door to the mall and locked it. What happened? I asked. Amanda straightened her clothes and tidied her hair. He must have suddenly realized it was a setup. We were having trouble controlling him. Glad you were here. Hell, he's bruised my arms. What now? Alice, I think, as thanks for your help, you should do the honors. She held out an open book to me and pointed at a page. Read this out. It doesn't matter that you can't understand the words. Just sound it out. 2 weeks later, I was back home. I had had a great time with Claudia and Carl, and the excitement of my adventures was still fresh in my mind. Yet I dared tell no one other than my mother, and she got a very much shortened version too. Helga and Amanda had maneuvered the semi-conscious man out the door and into a van. I think Vera was the driver. One of our security guards fainted, I said, as 2 passers-by gave us only slightly curious looks. Maybe the elf costume helped. We had been 5 minutes in the van when Beckwith fell totally unconscious. I began to feel slightly shivery, and occasionally I gasped, feeling as if someone was kicking my stomach. They unloaded me at Claudia's house, where she immediately gave me 2 Tylenol and put me to bed. I spent an uncomfortable 2 hours before I began to feel okay. I was about to get up and dress when Claudia knocked and came into my room. You feeling better? Yeah, I think it's passing over, whatever is happening. Surprisingly, I was hungry enough to want supper. Claudia smiled at me. You recognize this girl? She asked and held up a mirror to my face. I blinked at it, a bit surprised. It was me, but with subtle changes. It was still me in the mirror, but maybe my nose was just a bit smaller, my cheeks higher and my eyes brighter, somehow. The spell has changed me. I cried. Yes, it does that to girls too. But you're more beautiful. If that's possible, she added hastily. There was another effect. When I put on my bra the next day, it was just slightly tighter and my jeans were looser at the waist. Claudia, I asked. What's going to happen to that guy Beckwith? Best not to be concerned about him, sweetie. He is now a woman, and she will be dumped someplace far away. She was no great example of humanity as a man. Maybe she'll be better as a woman. All too soon it was time to home. Mom met me at the airport, and when we were outside she looked at me at arm's length. You know, Alice, you look different, more grown up. Did you have a good time? Seeing Claudia must have been good for you. She mentioned a treatment for you but says I'm not to ask about it. Ever. Is that right? And we're not to see any doctors. Mom, you've no idea. I love you very much, but I'm supposed to keep quiet, so I don't want to talk about it. But I could not contain my excitement 2 weeks later. I had been feeling a little uncomfortable, and then, Mom, it's come. I screamed. There was a spot of blood on the crotch of my panties.